Anyway, let's move on. Sound of Silence, welcome to the show. How can we help you?
Thank you very much. First of all, greetings from everybody at Skeptic TV. My question for Potholer. I greatly enjoy your new Science in the Media series, and it's proven quite a boon in resolving family disputes about things like climate change and vaccines and autism, when it turns out that a lot of even the mainstream media get their information from internet blogs and unchecked sources. The two questions really that I want to ask you, one which you've already addressed to a certain extent in your video. Why is it that the media are so reluctant to share their sources? And the second question is, what can or should we do to try and remedy that situation? Because in my experience, just writing letters to the editor doesn't get anywhere.
It doesn't. Actually, I'm dealing with a case recently where the Daily Mail had taken a paper by an American researcher that had found some information about the climate in the 11th century or something, and completely misrepresented it. And when I wrote to the author of the original scientific paper about this, he said, yeah, he said, look, he'd written to the Daily Mail, he'd explained that they got it wrong, and they were making some huge claim out of this. He'd written a letter and they just refused to publish it. There's not much, unfortunately, you can do in that case. They have absolute right to publish or not publish. Thank God, here in Australia we have something called Media Watch, which keeps an eye on these things, but it's only 15 minutes a week. And the other paper, I would say, or magazine, if you like, is Private Eye, which will call these things up. But unfortunately, there is no watchdog, apart from the Press Complaints Council, which is run by the press itself, that deal with these kinds of things. So they're pretty much free to write whatever they like. In the case of the Daily Mail, it's quite interesting. I think they took the view that the Daily Express, which is their main rival, sorry to those in the other parts of the world who aren't familiar with these two British papers, but they're great rivals. When the Daily Express turned against climate science, the Daily Mail probably thought it was in its best interest to do so. It's a very different paper to the one that I was working for under Sir David English, who I don't think would have tolerated the kind of things they're doing. As for checking their sources, well, they do. Normally, they give their source on there. If they're doing an interview with somebody, they will just completely misquote or misinterpret the source. That's the problem. Yeah, it's a big issue, and I think the biggest problem is that people writing all this stuff have no science background. They don't understand science, and it used to be the case that there would be science correspondents dedicated to covering science. Now science is just treated as another news story. Anybody can go out and cover science because they know so little about it. And I'll be doing more in that series with some personal experiences of this, which will be going into it. And it's quite frightening just how badly reported it is.
I feel like Goering, was it Goering? Every time I hear the word source, I reach for my revolver.
I did mean to apologise.
Sorry, who was it?
Oh, I think it might have been Goebbels.
Goebbels, yes, it was. He was the Minister of Propaganda.
Goering was the Air Force, the fat one.
My bad. Sorry, I interrupted someone. I know someone wanted to comment.
He was our guest.
Oh, no, I was just going to say I meant to apologise in advance because there was going to be a lot of source mentioning, which I knew was going to be about.
Yeah, and I want to jump into this too. I mean, the whole thing about the problem with the media and all. I've been on the news, on television news, a number of times, and every time that I've been on the news, I will go back and I'll watch the story and I'll find out what the reporters said about it that I might not have noticed right away. And it's what they they go back and they film by their van or whatever, and then you find out what they actually said about it, and it's always completely wrong. I don't understand how, when they do any numbers. I mean, if you've watched 3 different channels and they'll all report different numbers, and what are they, just pulling the numbers out of their ass, right? Or they make up something completely on the fly. Now we have something. We have Mythbusters, the TV show here, wherein people actually go to some trouble to try to think skeptically, and I would love to see that encouraged. I would love to see a lot more of that. I am really sick to death of people that didn't like the old version of Scooby-Doo, which I didn't like old Scooby-Doo either, because it always pull the mask off, and it always turns out that it's not really a ghost, and people want that mystery. So they had a new version where all of a sudden, every time they pull off the mask, it is a ghost. And they want to believe in
Aaron,
fantastic nonsense.
I want to open this up a little bit, if I may.
Go ahead.
To your views on this, and also potholers. It seems to me, and always has seemed to me, that science is far, far more interesting than any of the fictional nonsense that is created in Scooby-Doo or whatever. But I've also been acutely aware that my view about that is not a universal one or even a majority one. Why is it that people are not interested in what I think is a fascinating field? Is it a lack of education? Is it intellectual laziness? What's going on there? Aaron or Pot, who wants to pick up on that?
What I've gotten out of this, and I'll let Pot take over in just a moment, what I've gotten out of this from the zealots that I've talked to, both whether we are talking about the mainstream religious types or whether we're talking about the New Age religious types, either way, they want to create a situation where they can make up their own reality, where they can make up their own political situation, where they can imagine whatever motivations, whatever person being driven by whatever reptile from whatever planet is. They want to make up whatever they want and assert it as true. And they don't want anything to verify that that is not true.
It's not quite on point, though, Aaron. What I'm saying is, why is it that people are satisfied with mundane when the science is so much more interesting and exciting?
Well, somebody told me, one of my coworkers told me that if it doesn't have anything to do with the amount of food that they put on their table every night, then they don't need to know it and they don't want to.
But that's my point. Why? Why are they not tickled?
No, listen. I think humans are innately curious. Every time I go to IOL, there's always a picture up there, and it says something like, "You won't believe what this woman did," or "Guess what happened when this woman did something," and people will click on that. I refuse to, because I'm not going to be led into something like that. But people will click on it because they're curious. This is the way when they go into commercial break, they will always end like a quiz show with a question. People want to know the answer. I think we are innately curious, and I think that is stamped out of us from a very early age. Because if you look at the way kids explore the world at the age of 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, I mean, even a boy jumping in a puddle and watching the mud splash out, he's looking to see how far it goes. That's a scientific experiment. Kids love doing scientific experiments up until the point where they actually have to learn science for exams. Then they have to learn Newton's laws of motion. They have to work out equations. They have to do Kepler's laws. If I think we kept science to in the schools at the point where it was experimental and it was fun and kids were learning and they were curious about why things work and try to figure it out for themselves, I think that would be a good thing. And I'll just give you one example before I throw this open again. When I was at school, we had a spectroscope. We were learning about the spectrometry and so on, and spectral lines and different elements. And I was very much into astronomy in those days. I had a telescope at home. And I asked my teacher if I could borrow the school spectroscope so I could put it up against the telescope and look at stars and look at their spectral lines. And he said, no, because it won't work. I said, yeah, but I want to try it. He said, no, you won't be able to do it. Crushing that enthusiasm. Okay, it probably wouldn't have worked, but I would have learned something from that experiment. I would have learned that it didn't work. I don't want to be told that something doesn't work. I want to go out and find it for myself. And I think too many science teachers now are not letting kids explore. And I think there's that natural curiosity in all of us, which is being stifled from a very early age. And I think that's very sad.